We're going to use a 6x40 domino. Okay, 6 being the thickness, 40 being the length. Okay, now the original, I used the precision of the machine by utilizing these flaps. Okay, and those flaps, the distance from the flap, this little exercise today will help you understand your domino a little bit better. The distance from the flap, you know what? Right when I think I got everything set up, let me get my my folding rule over here. The distance from the flap here to the center, and there's the center line right there, is 37 millimeters. And that's what I did on the original piece. So that placed me close to the center here. Okay? But what I wanted is more glue line. So I do a double tenon. And I use the precision of the machine. So, hey, what episode did we do the drawer box in?
32.
Okay, so in episode 32, boy, he's got a good memory. Okay, in episode 32, okay, we talked about this piece, this support bracket. You remember I told you how this has evolved over the years? It has, because I want to talk about this flap like I did in that segment. Okay? So, when you put something on the domino, always make sure you put it on a flat surface. And you'll see the support bracket will go in these two holes right here with these two threaded knobs. And I'm just going to thread that right in like this. Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay? Make sure it's that flat surface anytime you put something on the machine. Okay? Whether it's the support bracket or the trim stop. The cross stops. Okay, so I defined this earlier. This is the plate, and this is the base. Okay, that square part. I label everything. Plate height, and I go plunge depth. Plunge depth is how far I'm going to plunge into each piece. So that's easy today. I'm going to leave it on one setting, and my plunge depth is right here. It's 20, because, wait a minute. Big D? No, Minnie, you're good at metric. What's half of 40? 20. Woo! Miss Metric. Look, I'm going to take this. I'm going to pull this blue tab forward. I'm going to bring it right here to 20. Okay? So I'm going to plunge into each piece leg and also apron skirt with 20. Okay. Plunge depth is 20. Now let me turn on my Vaxis. Okay, because I want to work off the table. And please listen to what I'm saying. When you're moving that flap back and forth, and I say this so it reminds me to do it. Always make sure the machine and the bit have stopped. Particularly the bit has stopped before you maneuver those flaps, the 20 flap. Because I want to go from the top and from the bottom on the apron skirt on my face, okay, from here, this is 20, and from here it's 20. In fact, I have it all labeled out because I made myself a gauge block right here. We'll use this on the leg. Okay? So, whenever I use the precision of the machine, I don't have to think about it now. I'm using reference points that are accurate on the machine. I'm going to go in the tight setting here. Okay? That way there I have no wiggle room. You'll understand this in a minute. Because when we do the leg, one of them's going to be in the tight position. The other one's going to have a little wiggle room. All right? The top, you'll see it in a minute. Okay? But that little extra wiggle room helps in assembly. I just need glue line. I need it for a little bit of alignment. Okay? But guess what I'm going to be using? I always remember this. When I'm using my eye on a scribed line, I usually make it loose. Because you know what? I'm getting younger by the day, and these eyes are going on me. Okay, so here we go. So here I go. See this right here? I'm going to take that flap, and I'm going to rotate it out. See it? Okay, so now from here to the center is 20 millimeters. So let me turn it on. I'm going to place that right here, and I'm going to plunge. It should not be that easy, but it is. And then I'm going to come over here and do that side. Now here is what I was mentioning earlier so you understand. Okay, that bit is now stopped. And if I put my hand near here to rotate this flap down, guess what? I was in danger zone. So make sure it's completely stopped. And now we're going to rotate the other flap up. I'll turn it on. Remember, if you hear too much chatter, you should slow down. You don't want to climb cut the bit. Okay, so there you go. That's the easy side of the joint. And what I always do is I'm going to take my tenons, I'm going to place them in there, just like this, 6 by 40. Yes, I had a 40 millimeter bit in there. I mean, a 6 millimeter bit, but look how accurate this machine is, everybody. It just kills me sometimes when I used to do some hand cuts like this and how much easier it is. Okay, so there you go. Done. This is my face. Good. Now, here's the difficult part that everybody, and it really isn't. Okay, I'm going to do some labeling really quick. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Let's just do it here on the Vaxis so you get a good look of it. Take this out because this doesn't register good on here, or well, I should say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part out and put it in. Always make sure that that pin seats into that groove right here. Okay, that way there. It doesn't pull out, so I always take it like this, set it, and I wait for the click. Okay, here we go. Now, let's do some labeling. Big D, you got this from the top as well?
Yep.
Okay. There's a few things I'm going to do extra on this so you can actually understand that. Now, when I was working on this material, okay, my plate height was 20. The 20 on my apron skirt appears right in there. That's actually the thickness of the material. Now, I know I've said this in a couple of videos before, but I always like to reiterate it because that's the confusing part of this. Okay, so if that's the thickness of the material, the distance from here to the center of the bit is half that, which is 10. Okay, so I want a 10 millimeter offset. So what I do, and hear me out, I'll show you how to check this out. I'm going to take my plate height, I'm going to move it out, and I'm going to put 40 in the window. Okay, that'll give me the 10 millimeter offset. I'm going to lock it down here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to take a finer line pencil. Okay, now here's my face, and I'll show you how to do that. But I'm going to bring this down here, and here's my 20 mark right here, right? Okay, I'm going to scribe it across really quick, like here. Okay, make sure I reference it right. Okay, so there's my 20 mark. Now, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if I've covered this before. But right here on the domino, I'm going to get that little part out of there. You see where it's shiny right there? That's actually the center of your bit. Okay, so if I come over here, that's 20 with the extra. Look, you see how it lined? Oopsie, let's get that flap out of there so you can see it. See how that's my center line right there? So I know from the top of my plate to the center of the bit is actually 20 millimeters. I'm going to put a piece of paper on here because I want to describe the paper and the pad. Okay, you're going to notice all the holes in the paper. Okay, as we innovate things, come on over here, Chris. This is the original paper. Okay, this is the Planex classic paper, and it works with the EZ. But we didn't forget about you because it still has that center hole pattern. So the new paper is we have more holes on it. And the dust extraction is even better, okay, because we figured out a few things. It is available, okay, and you're going to notice two different hole patterns. Hopefully we can see this. This is granite paper. It's available from 80 grit to 40 grit to 320 grit. In the lower grits, 40 to 60 on the granite, it has 48 holes. And on the higher grits, from 80 to 320, it has 128 holes. Better airflow. We still have in the arsenal of paper is granite net, where it pulls through the whole net product. That's for like softer materials. We do have this for really tough popcorn removal that has a lot of paint on it, or some really hard materials. This is sapphire paper. It's got 48 holes in it, and it's available in 24 and 36 grit. Okay, the big difference is we've always had pads for the Planex and the Planex EZ. And in those pads, you had the inner holes, and we had suction from the outside as well. And one of the things we learned, because we had these, and I'll take the EZ over here, we had these bristles, and that blocked the dust, because this was rotary, right? And dust would get out here. So these bristles, okay, would block the dust going in. But here's the situation. If you're sanding mud that was not cured completely, you would get little hard pieces in here and dry. It would scratch the surface, even though this is spring-loaded and would float with the head. So what we did with the random orbit, okay, with the pad is, and we would try to compensate and stuff by putting interface pads. This is the backing pad. Okay, it's really hard, and you'll see when I show you the pad on the Planex head. This is the actual pad. It's hooked on with, look, 8 screws right here, and you can remove them, put a replacement. These are designed to last a very, very long time. Okay, but you're going to notice there's no bristles on the outside, and you can still sand to an inside corner within 5 millimeters. So you can usually finish up with like a DTS 400. Hopefully you're following that. So you're going to notice that this pad, okay, it's an interface pad, but it's a pad. It's a little bit soft. So what we wanted to do, combine it with the random orbit motion, okay, the softness of this pad with the granite paper. This actually floats on there. And I'll also talk about the suction control. So what happens is you get an absolutely perfect surface. Okay? So, remember I said we've been watching you and how you're using the sanders, okay? So we've come out with a lot of things. Check this out. I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to put it right up here. It doesn't, look, there's a button right here. Yeah, it's got a light bulb. Check it out. It's a 360 degree, okay? And it's somebody asked me, it's a 5,000 Kelvin LED. That way there, it's basically daylight. 3,000 Kelvin and below, it's a yellowy light. Over 6,000, it's usually a bluish light or tone to it. 5,000 nails it. And what's really cool is all our other sys lights or lighting solutions at Festool are all 5,000. That way there you can use them in conjunction. Say on a job site, I'm using a sys duo, our big job site light. It'll work perfect with it as well. You always start it off the wall. Okay? So let me get going. Let me see. There's an on-off switch. I always start between 5 and 4 to get used to the machine's speed, or that's the pad speed. This is your on and off. Okay? I'm going to turn it on. And you're going to see, okay, now here's what I want to show you, and hopefully we can get this. Okay, as I sand over here, I'm going to come halfway off. Look at the dust extraction. It's incredible. All right, and I'm just going to take time doing this as I'm doing this. And yes, I laid on a lot of mud on this so we'd have a good demo. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the suction control, and I'm going to take it off just for a minute. I got my suction all the way up there. Okay, now, when I say it's about ergonomics with this machine, okay, one of the things we saw with the other Planexes is when you start your machine, and a lot of people when they're sanding removing popcorn or sanding ceilings, they would start the machine, and hopefully we get this. Look at this. They would go in like that, the pad spinning, and it would create a half moon. I call them scallop patterns on there. It was not a desired result. But if we look at this, look how we designed the head here. This is actually the perfect ergonomic to put right up to the ceiling. In fact, that's why it sits like it does inside the XXL Generation 3 Sustainer, to maintain that perfect angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on. Okay? I'm going to bring it up to the popcorn, and I'm going to start sanding. And you're going to see how I can actually just go one-handed with this. I always get a kick out of when people do this in videos. All right, but I'm doing this so you can see this. Okay, where it's basically an effortless popcorn removal. The CT48. We got the CT48 Auto Clean. We got the CT36. We got the CT36 Auto Clean. We got the CT26, CT15. We have the MIDI. We have the Mini. Hey, no, that's the Mini. Okay, we have a CT Mini. We named it after her. Okay, and we have the CT Sys. That's all our dust extractors. And I kind of went through in that first episode How do you pick the one? Okay, so if we really look at it, now just a little review. Almost all of these are the same CFM. You see these all right up here? These are 137 CFM. This one and these are what? 130 CFM. And this is 105 CFM. Okay, you know what? The difference between 130 and 137 is not that great. So to choose the right CT, it's the capacity. Okay, how much does the bag hold? There's a bag in these, and we're going to cover that today. Okay, okay. Almost every one of these, except for the CT48s, come with, or the CT48 Auto Clean and the CT36, they have separate hoses, as well as what? The CT15 has the non-anti-static hose. So when we look at that and we start talking about hoses, almost every one of these CTs comes with this hose. Okay, this is our conical hose. We call it our 27 millimeter hose. All right. If we look right here, okay, you can actually connect them. To connect them is super easy. We have 36 millimeter hoses. We have 50 millimeter hoses. To connect them, they're that simple. And some of you may have the old ribbed hoses. They're not this easy to connect. And this is what I always tell people when I talk about hoses. Oh my goodness. To connect them, we've learned over the years what the big struggles were, is how to connect the hose. So we innovated a few years ago and came out with this wrapped hose that has nylon on it on the outside, and it's very flexible. And you know what? It's not that much lighter than the older hoses, but it's much more flexible, and it doesn't have all those catch points like the old ones have. Okay, now this is the 36. When you're connecting hoses, always connect the larger one toward the vac. Follow? Okay, so the 36, that end goes into the vac. Then you connect it to your 27 like that, and you're ready to go. Now, someone says, well, why do you have a 36 millimeter hose? More airflow. Okay, so say you have a connection point like this. This is one of the things I loved when I first came to Festool, and I started understanding the system. Okay, when you see an aperture like this, or a diameter like this, okay, this is why the 27 comes with almost every single one of the dust extractors. Look, you see this end? It goes inside. And look here on the sanders. It goes right on the outside, right? Okay, but what's really important is now if you want to up the airflow to what? A 36, it goes on the outside as well. Let me just get that on there. See that? And it locks on now. You just got to line up these little arrows right here to the arrows. You push it all the way on. You turn it, and that will never come off. So that's been innovated over the years. Follow? Good. So that's the difference between a 36. Now, a little test that I learned early on, and I want to bring it over here. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to reach over here. Oh, no, let me hook it up over here. I'm going to put it down here so you can see it. And I'm going to turn it on. Okay? And this is the difference. You can actually hear it. You see how that goes in like that? Okay? And I'm pulling. All right? This here is our turbo head. All right? Listen to this. You can hear that, right? Okay? That's the airflow. Not yet, man. No. We're going to do it. I'm a little ways away, babe. Minnie's going to be my dust extractor variable suction when I talk about it. Okay, now, the way this is driven, so you can see it, I'm going to undo it just like this. Air is being pulled across this turbine. See it? I can actually stop it. And what happens is this is like it's basically a carpet beater. Okay? Now you heard that. Okay. So say I need more airflow, not just for that. You can hear it with the turbo head. But say I'm running a Capex. Say I'm running one of our larger routers. I'm making a huge amount of chip. Say I'm using a TS75 or a TS55. You could put a 36 millimeter on there. and you can really up the airflow. Listen to this now. It's substantial, isn't it?
It's a higher
So I just
pitch.
wanted to show you the difference between 36 and the 27. Okay, so I think you all know this. You see where it says 0? That means off. Manual means it's on all the time. Auto means when I cycle this machine on, or any machine, it automatically comes on. Okay, so I'm going to be sanding, right? And you ever use a sander just like this, or an orbital sander, and you feel it start to chatter a little or pull in? I can almost pull this up, okay? It's too much suction. Hey, man, can you come and turn that down for me? Because hopefully you can see this. As I'm sanding with this, all the way down. Perfect. That is actually starting to float. I'm still getting killer dust extraction, but the pad has broken the surface tension. Okay? On orbitals like the DTS, RTS, it really pulls down in there. I wish I had, it sounds funny, I wish we had feel-o-vision. Because when Minnie turned that down, my hand started to float on that sander. Okay, so hopefully you understand that. Turn the suction down when you're using a random orbit sander and orbital sander from Festool, okay? It helps prevent these wonderful little things that you only see when you put finish on. They're called swirl marks. So that's one of the factors that's why we have variable suction on our dust extractor. If you don't use a bag, no, you're replacing the $100 HEPA filter. Okay, because as soon as a chip goes in there and pierces that, that's no longer 0.3 micron. That's no micron. All right? You have ruined your filter. If you see dust flying out the side of your dust extractor, you don't have filtration. You're breathing that stuff. It's going up in the air, and you got to wait for that stuff to come down so you can go to your finishing. This is a 5 micron filter. This is the containment bag. Right? When I open it up like this, right? See this right here? I take it like this, and I pull it shut, and I throw it away. By the way, these will fill and fill and fill and fill till these things become what we call bricks. So when I used to work the phones, way back when, I used to get all the time, hey, I'm running my CT dust extractor, and it shuts off. I go, did you check the bag? And I go, there's a bag in there? And people would open this up, and what was happening is the MMC, the multiple material control, was shutting down the motor before it heated up too much. You were overheating your machine. So this will fill and fill and fill till it's like hot as a rock. We call it the brick. So always check your bag. Okay, I usually go like this to backfill it and continue using this. The bags last a long time. If that's the question you want, they fill to maximum capacity, and that's what I would always tell people. That's how long a bag lasts. Here we go. One of the things I do when I'm doing a layout, because I told you earlier, these are your critical pieces. And this happened in a class, the second class we did this, and I just could not stop laughing. Okay, so I'm just going to tighten this clamp on here. All right? So I know where to start with this. I'm just going to bring this in here. And I'm just going to bring it together. All right, just like this. I got my center style in there. I'm going to make sure everything is even right where I need it. Okay, and I'm going to tighten it up. Okay, so here's what's critical. And this is what I saw in one of the very first classes. I'm going to put my first 309 in here, like this. Okay, and I want to show you what happened. I'm just going to move over here, Chris, and pick up this piece. This is what I mean by gauge blocks. I don't have to think about my drawer opening. See that? And these will also be critical when you go into glue up. So I'm just going to knock this over here like this and bring this in. Now here's where I'm going to show you this is critical. See how that fits absolutely perfect? I have a couple of pieces here that may have been miscut. And you see how I'm not messing around at all here? I have this in the clamp, so I have a solid frame to start with. I saw two guys in class doing this. Okay, they put it in here like this. And they didn't cut these precisely. And look at this. Chris, can we get this? Or Derek, can we get this?
Oh, yeah.
You see how this was a little too tight? Okay, so what happened is they said they did all their layout. And they said, the heck with it. That's what clamps are for. And when they were putting this together, I'm going to try to emulate this. They had their pieces in here in their joinery. And check this out. Hopefully, Derek, you can get this. They had a space down here like this. Okay? I call this my dry fit story because I'll tell you what, this was funny as heck. I saw these guys taking these clamps. See the space here? Look over here. See this? That's why these are critical. Okay? See that space? They were going like this, and they put so much torque on there. The next day when we popped them out of glue up, they started saying it with the RO90. It was the funniest daggone thing you've ever seen. All of a sudden, you could hear it a mile away. It went ping, and the face frame broke. So don't think that that glue's going to hold a gap like this in tension as you bring it all the way in. That's just too much tension in the frame. So what I'll do is I'll take these pieces out, and here's the mistake I've seen too many people make. Okay, they'll take one of these, bring them over to the K-Pex like this, and take a little bit off and leave this one back here. And that's a no-no. And the reason that's a no-no is because now that center style is now off. Okay? So when you cut these, you make sure when you cut them, you make sure it's perfectly even here, and you cut them simultaneously to fit them in. Hopefully you see that. I'm just going to lock this down. This does need to be taken off, and you take off ever so slightly so those fit, okay? But cut them the same at the same time. Let me get my drawer box rails in here. Just get those all tidied up because I'm going to do the layout. And it's really easy as I put this together. Let me get that right in here. Let me get my gauge blocks in here, the 114, just like this, and get it all set up for you. Okay, so I'm ready to rock and roll. And now this is in the center. I take this, and here's where I'm going to start labeling everything. The better you label, the easier your joinery is going to go. So I'm just going to take this, and I'm not going to go through all of it. Chris, we decided right here, these are the ones I'm going to get on video for all of us. I'm going to bring that, the top of my cab or my face frame, I'm going to make a mark here. Okay? But as I go through this, I have to label this. L, tight. You see how I didn't put a center line there? This is how I'm going to set up what? The gauge block. Trim stop. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to make one here, and you'll see I made one there. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to make these marks like this on my stiles, okay, because that's the critical one, okay, but I'm going to label LL. I'll label these. Look, I'm going to come over here. I'm kind of backwards on this, Chris, but I'm going to come in like this, and I'm going to label this over here. Sorry, buddy. I got to come over here. Sorry, everybody. I'm getting a... You got overhead on this? Thanks. I'm just going to make one mark, and then what I'll do is I'll extend it across. L. This is going to be... I want to do the center style with you, but here's the other critical part that everybody forgets. Look, I made a mark down here on my center style. I'm going to make it up here. And if I mark these just like this, guess what? I don't have to think about it. That's loose. That's going to be tight, 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 loose, 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 tight. Loose, 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 tight. I think I got them all labeled. Okay? And you'll understand all of this momentarily. So what I'll do is I'll do the center style. And what I'll do is I'll do 2 top and bottom rail. And I'll do one of the draw box rails. Okay? So I'm going to take that over here. Let's get all my parts just like this so I know what I'm doing. So I know what I'm doing. Hello! Okay, now let's set up the machine. Let's get all my parts the way I need them. I'm just going to circle this like this because I know that's the 2 I want to go into here. Perfect. And I know, because this is the one I want, right? That's my inside, so I'm going to face that toward me. But the ones I'm going to do first, as I talk through this, is I'm going to use this. We call this the trim stop. I'm going to do on end grain, I am going to do a mortise that's 20 millimeters in depth, okay? But I am going to do them all at the same time, and I'm going to do them quite quickly because I'm using this. And I'm going to work off the center line, okay? I am going to use, I said this in the very beginning, the precision of the machine. Okay, I'm not going to rely on these. So I'm going to set my height right here at 20 millimeters. Okay, that's the thickness of my material. Okay, I set my depth at 20, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over so you can see this. See that? That's my center line, and that's my center line. So I took my gauge block, and I lined it up. There's the center, just like this, and these are independently adjustable. I'm going to bring that right in, so that's exactly on center, so I don't have to think about it. See that? So as long as I know what? The face, where to put the plate on the face of my material, I have it. I could do all my tights all at once. Okay? So the only thing I gotta do is get some power to her. I'm using a 6x40, so I already changed the bit yesterday on there. Okay? Remember, when you put a plug-it cord on there, it's a full quarter turn, and you always make sure your machine is cycled off before you put electricity to it. And I know that's tight and tight. So I'm just gonna take that, put it on there like that. I'm gonna turn on my machine, and I'm gonna switch it to the tight setting. It should always be running when you're switching between settings. So I'm just going to take that. Look, I don't even have to think about this. Look. And you see how I'm working off the material? Whoop. Let me get a little tension off of there. Okay, now, this is why you mark the face, okay? I just plunged in here and created that tight mortise, right? If this wasn't marked, I have seen this so many daggone times. People go like this and make the next mortise, okay? What we teach everybody is helicopter it, okay? Just flip it around, and you'll see how easy that is, just like this. Okay, and that was tight, right? Now, the center style, that's why I labeled it, I have two of them that have that tight setting, here and here. By the way, that's the one everybody forgets. Okay? So I'm going to take that, bring it right in. Make that mortise, flip it around. That's why the Vaxis is wonderful in this application. Top, right? Let's do that. You always see how I'm always putting it in the tight first? That way there you have wiggle room for alignment. So let's do this. Watch. That goes in there like, look how that face just lines up perfect. Now, what's going to happen is the reason you want the wiggle room, it's simple. You're going to get the adhesion on the long grain to long grain. You don't need, once that goes on the cabinet, there's no racking. It'll never break apart, okay? What you want to do is you just want it to get it perfectly. And that's why you have that wiggle room in there, because you're using your eyes. In the early days, I was trying to get it all of them tight, and I was having a heck of a time getting alignment. This just speeds it up really easy. Okay, now here's the trick. This one right here, see how we have both sides done with the mortises? Okay. I'm going to put one in here. The tight, right? Because we got them in the tights. We got to... the tight mortises. That just doesn't sound right. We got them in the tights. Okay, look. I got wiggle room here. And this is the right orientation, by the way. Okay. I'm going to start to get this one in here, and now you have that little wiggle room in there to get that center style, to get in all the mortises, and then that'll go right into glue up. This is why when you go into glue up, you have these little gauge blocks to get a perfect. Now, someone will say, do you take a square to this? And in class, I say, you can if you want. Okay, but here's what I'll tell you. When you use a super accurate miter saw, set at 0 and your bevel's at 0, that's a square cut. If you have all your material ripped at 50 millimeter. By putting it in here, using gauge blocks, it's going to be square. So everybody would contradict me and say, no, it's not going to be. I said, I always take one group and say, hey, leave it alone. And then at the end, after glue up, they take it out and it'll be perfectly square. You start with square parts. It ends up square, okay? But you can always check. So I just want to point that